last time we saw the Keith Thurman of old? I want everybody to think back as far as you can and realize that we have not seen Keith Thurman in his physical prime doing top-notch performances ever since 2017. Boom! Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm giving my prediction for the fight coming up between Sebastian Fundora and Keith one-time Thurman. Are we gonna get the Keith Thurman of old? Well, I hate to break it to the one-time fans because I myself am one of them. Odds are that it's very highly unlikely. And here's the reason why. When was the last time we saw the Keith Thurman of old? I want everybody to think back as far as you can and realize that we have not seen Keith Thurman in his physical prime doing top-notch performances ever since 2017 when he beat Danny Garcia. That was the last time we saw him perform at that top level. He went on to have surgery afterwards and took like a year off and some change and then came back and fought Josecito Lopez. Now, I want people to remember something, and this is why I'm saying we're not going to get the Keith Thurman of old. Because before he fought Manny Pacquiao, there was rumblings that he was going to fight Errol Spence, and he continuously said, I need one extra fight before I fight Spence. He wanted an interim fight after he fought Josecito Lopez, but instead, because he had the opportunity to fight Manny Pacquiao, he took it. Because at the time, Manny Pacquiao and Mayweather were the hot tickets. You couldn't say no to them. So he took the fight and ended up losing that fight, and then took more time off until he came back, beat Mario Barrios, and then took another 3 years off and came back and beat Jarvin Brock. In reality, he's just been so inactive, it's tough for me to say we're going to get the Keith Thurman of old. But is this version of Keith Thurman enough to beat the freaking giant monster that is the 6'5" foot freaking Sebastian Fundora? He might be 6'6", honestly. That is tough to say, because when you look at Sebastian Fundora's last fight, he fought like a professional that was confident in his abilities. When he beat Tim Tszyu the second time, he didn't fight like the Fundora that we had watched the previous years. He looked like a completely different fighter. His jab was patient. It was authoritative. He wasn't in a rush to trade. He used his reach, which is something that sometimes these fighters that don't have enough muscle just throw away sometimes. If you remember Paul Williams, he used to do the same thing. He was so tall. He would use his jab, but he loved trading on the inside. And Fundora, I think, is managing that desire to just go in and trade and starting to use that jab. And he's actually almost looks a little more athletic than he used to. I think his conditioning, his strength and conditioning is starting to play a role in his career. And it is tough to say that Thurman has it in him to beat Fundora. I know Fundora was getting caught a lot versus Tim Tszyu in the first fight, but he took that fight on short notice. And after that fight, it's just been a completely different Fundora. Man, this dude is dangerous. I'm not saying he's the best at 154, but Sebastian Fundora at this point is the most dangerous 154-pounder, because now that he knows how to maximize his capabilities, he's just so calm, cool, and collective, and he can hit you from different angles because he's so big. And fighting somebody that tall, you just can't train for that. How can Keith Thurman get a sparring partner that big that's not like completely like out of his weight class? You know, most people that tall are heavyweights. Not light heavyweights, not cruiserweights, heavyweights. And Keith Thurman's going to have a tough time. But I do want to state a few things, right? Keith Thurman likes to move around the ring. He hops in and out. And I think that style really suited him early in his career. But I don't know how much that's going to be able to help him here. Although I think looping shots is actually Sebastian Fundora's kryptonite. And I think that's what Keith Thurman specializes in. So it'll be interesting to see if he get those early shots in. But here's the way I think this fight's going to go. Keith Thurman needs to hurt him early in the fight, because he's an older fighter. His legs ain't what they used to. And why? Because he's just like way old. He's 37 at this point, and he hasn't been active. I think if Sebastian Fundora can establish his jab early on and keep it pawing in his face, eventually he might even be able to stop Keith Thurman. You know, Keith Thurman could potentially get stopped here just because he's going to get too tired. He's going to keep getting that jab repeatedly in his face with that straight followed behind it. And I just can't see Keith Thurman trying to fight a Mike Tyson style of fight and going in and out, trying to break his ribs. You know, he was talking about chopping down the tree in one of those press conferences. I don't think he's going to try to chop down the tree. I think he's going to aim for the face. Although, if I'm in his corner, I'm strategizing to land in those hooks. I just don't see it happening at this point. Keith Thurman almost has to get him out early, because I think the longer this fight goes, the more it's going to benefit Sebastian Fundora. And that's why I'm picking Sebastian Fundora to win. And I honestly think he might even stop Keith Thurman. Just because, like I said, if this was the Keith Thurman of old, like he keeps talking about and the media keeps talking about, then you know what? Keith Thurman probably would win this fight. But this is not the Keith Thurman of old. I can't go against Father Time. You know, I'm picking Fundora by unanimous decision and potential late round stoppage. Guys, us one-time fans, man, we're going to cry Saturday. But I'm trying not to be biased here. I got to go with my man, Sebastian Fundora, to stop Keith Thurman. That's it, guys. I'm not too enthusiastic about this, but if you disagree with me, you let me know in the comments down below. Boom, and I'll see you in the next one.